So it's easy to do, it's fun to do, and you come home with something that's really valuable.
What lies beneath? That is among the questions that these state employees are trying to answer as they dig into the Washington coastline. For this field report, we got out of our shell and traveled on the road to Long Beach, Washington, as we learned a little bit more about razor clams. Razor clams are a big deal in the Evergreen State. According to the Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife's Coastal Shellfish Manager Dan Ayers, the number of documented clam diggers is monumental.
This last season we had 350,000 digger trips. That's a lot of people coming out to the Washington coast, and these communities are small. There's not tons of people that live out here, and so when razor clam digging's open, it's a flood of people that comes to the coast and enjoys razor clamming. And I mean, we're on this quiet beach today where you don't see any cars or anybody out here, and on a razor clam day it'd be a solid line of cars, maybe two or three lanes deep. It's just overwhelming almost. And the nice thing about the population is you'll think, wow, we wiped them out in that one day. Day after day after day. Clams keep coming.
Before the popular clam digging can ensue, the State Department of Fish and Wildlife takes to Washington beaches to count and measure the razor clam stock for the coming year.
What we do all summer long is we're trying to make an estimate of the number of razor clams on the beach so that we know what we can harvest in the coming season. So we use this method where we randomly locate these transects. Every 50 feet we do 6 of these rings that are 1/2 square meter in area. We liquefy the sand in the area of those rings, and every clam that's there pops to the surface. And we can count it, we can measure them, and then you'll see the guys putting those clams back in so that they survive and go on for the future. And by the time we end that work in one turn of the tide today, we'll come away with data that tells us what the average number of clams per square meter are along that transect. We repeat that about every mile, and we end up with an estimate of the number of clams per square meter on the entire beach. And it's an estimate, it's not perfect, but it's the best estimate we have. And unlike a lot of my colleagues who are trying to count deer running around in the forest or birds flying around in the air, razor clams don't move around, so we actually come away with a pretty darn good number.
House Bill 1061 underscored the importance of razor clams in Washington. The bill, introduced during the 2019 session, would have made the Pacific razor clam the official state clam.
Well, from time to time I stick my neck out on an important bill, and this is one of those bills. And folks, we talk about a state this and a state that, but the razor clam is critically important to the economy of the coast of Washington. It's a wonderful clam. They're great raw on the beach. They're great fried in butter, and I urge you to support this bill.
Speaking of iconic things in Washington, Madam Speaker, we like this bill too. It's a good bill to encourage the tourism that we see out on the coast. And I'm heartened to see that my seatmate has met a razor that he likes. Vote yes.
The legislation passed the House by a unanimous vote, but stalled in the Senate. While razor clam season can be a highly positive and popular recreational activity, there is caution related to the highly sought-after sand-dwelling creatures. Through a partnership with the State Department of Health, there is an ongoing effort to combat a potential razor clam toxin.
There's a lot of different species of plankton, and those species are really important to razor clams because that's what they feed on. But there's also occasionally blooms of harmful species of algae or plankton that can produce a toxin that is harmful not to the clams, but it's harmful to us. What we're doing is making sure that the clams that you're going to eat have been tested right before that period of digging opens, and they're safe for consumption. And so you can go home with those clams and know that you're not going to have to worry about illness.
As he looks ahead to the future of razor clams in the Evergreen State, Ayers hopes for sustainability.
Well, the big question with razor clams is what's going to happen to the ocean. We're all wondering as ocean conditions change. So far, razor clams are obviously doing quite well, and I get asked that a lot. So what I hope is that ocean conditions don't change so much that razor clamming is in any way imperiled. we'll just have to ride that out and see how it goes. But what I hope for Washington is that we continue to learn to manage as our population continues to increase and as people come into the state and want to learn to participate in all the things that we have to offer, that we can continue to offer sustainable resources into the future.